Good morning, friends. School of Tomorrow. My purpose here today in this video is to tune in the ongoing, at this point, when I'm making this ongoing festival that we can call Regenera Rising. That's from Design Science Studio here. And by that's from, I mean that, the festival, the movement. Now, what is the movement? From the point of view of the Bucky Fuller Institute, we're sort of dedicating the next design science decade. Now, a lot of people think of the design science decade as something that Fuller predicted and that we keep postponing. My view is we've had several design science decades. The open source revolution, as I've discussed elsewhere in this channel, stands out as a triumph of design science revolution, really. That the two are not linked together is kind of like people don't link trim tab, this famous metaphor that Bucky came up with, to the point of putting it on his gravestone. Call me trim tab. Didn't make up the word, it comes from the maritime tradition, which is appropriate in his case. But it means rudder. And we all learn in cybernetics that cyber means like to steer, and it also refers to a rudder. So that the trim tab idea is a contribution to cybernetics that gets overlooked a little bit. And that was one of my comments in our meetup with the World Game folks, in particular, Medard Gabel. Is it Gabel? Gable? Gable. No. So, as you can tell, I haven't met him a lot. In fact, I don't think since the 90s. But he was there giving a very detailed presentation of what's been going on with World Game. And I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to just have my bucket of my gigabytes of saved moments from this festival. I'm just looking up here to open Camtasia. I've been collecting some segments, right? So here we come in, and there's Medard right there. And mostly he was giving a presentation. Let's move forward. Okay, this was a long discussion session, is actually what this was. Prior to that, let's see, are these even, okay, prior to that would be his presentation. So I'll drag that down here so we can view it. Come on, come on. It's hard to both record and operate Camtasia at the same time. It's a little bit of a strain on this ancient Mac I got at Fubon. So I'm just scrolling through this quickly, but this was the kind of presentation that we got regarding the history of World Game. Now, I didn't record the whole thing. I just recorded little snippets. Kind of archive-minded, right? Archival stuff. Speaking of archives now, I'll get back to this ongoing festival. The Joe Moore, Trevor Blake archive, which I talk about in other parts of this channel. We look at Trevor's Synchronophile website. He has been one of those who has worked very hard at preserving a lot of the materials relating to Buckminster Fuller. Now, Ed Applewhite before that, and of course the BFI itself. There's a lot of stuff now at Stanford University through BFI and through Applewhite, but that's not the full extent of the legacy. There's a lot of stuff at Oregon State University now, which makes sense. It's right next to the Linus Pauling, Ava Helen stash, which I visited. There's a link to it, in fact, right here. Now, this is not so much, well, I haven't spent the time with it that Trevor has, and I won't characterize in I've seen it, right? I've worked with this material a little bit. I helped unpack the trucks and stuff, but the vans when we moved it from one site to another. But I would say it's more secondary literature. It's not handwritten letters by Fuller. Of course, he dictated a lot to his secretaries, but I'm saying this isn't like private correspondence so much. It's more like stuff written like every New York Times article about Bucky, say, magazine articles, this kind of thing. Help memorialize that. Speaking of which, back to aesthetics and what the movement is. I like the aesthetics here a lot. There's a steampunk sort of retro, and that's appropriate because Fuller was using dirigibles to deliver housing units early on. That was sort of one of his signature science fiction motifs. And here we have these modules of various sizes, and they have kind of a Hobbit-like look, but also I'd say Mist Uru. If you know what I'm talking about, Cyan Software in Spokane came out with these worlds on a computer that you could play in called Mist and Uru. I'm skipping one. There's Riven. So I would really link those two. And I've done so for years, actually, in my blogs, because I think the idea of design science and creating a world, it pays to start with science fiction and work backwards. Like, how did we get there from here? And so you have to think of there where you're trying to get, and immediately you're involved in planning and thinking ahead. And events like this take a lot of planning and thinking ahead, right? I did not manage to get into this 3D geometry talk, one of the Burning Man guys. There's a lot of Burning Man involved in this. I mean, by Burning Man, I mean a subculture. I don't mean any particular hierarchy of management personalities. Not that those aren't there. I'm just saying, when I use the term Burning Man subculture, I'm being vague. Finally, I want to talk about Casey House's contribution. He gave a talk. I did get to that one. That was the, by the way, this is an ongoing event. Where does schedule go here? So I'm partly while I'm getting this video out, more distillation could have gone on, and that will happen in the future. In other words, I'm not waiting until the event's over before I look back and say, oh, this is all of what happened. I'm more saying, hey, it's ongoing right now, so if you're one of those few who watches my videos close to the time that I actually recorded them, look at all this kind of stuff that you could jump in on. And this is just, okay, what is this actually? Is this, yeah, there's that guy, transportals, huh? Now, I can't say I'm going to make even a tiny percentage of these in real time, if ever, but it's leaving a good record of what we were thinking in the beginning of this Design Science Decade 2021. We're starting the clock. You could connect this to the Foundation for the Long Now and the Clock of the Long Now, building a clock for accurate timekeeping for the next mechanical clock that will run for at least 10,000 years is the idea. This kind of reminds me of getting that New Frontiers, New Horizons satellite to look at Pluto for like a day. That took so many decades of planning. The team had to be like recruited to stay interested for like 20 years, right? They're still working on the data. But that thing launched, and it was like 15 years before it got to Pluto, was it? Or longer than that? Anyway. My dad was a planner. For those just joining us, I talk about him sometimes like a regional urban planner. So And the whole process, how does one make plans? What is, there's a lot of politics, obviously. Robert Moses has been talked about here on this channel in connection especially with the New York World's Fairs of 63, 64, and how did that fit into the culture then? There was a slowdown in the workers. And I did want to say this is not disconnected. Like Martin Luther King has popped up here in the literature, and the civil rights movement has been part of this and continues to be. And I guess that leads us to questions about democracy and what does it mean. Like at no point during this festival are we all sitting down and voting on things, at least not to my knowledge, right? And so is this democracy? It does look like citizen participation. It looks like not waiting for some boss to tell you what needs to be done. So it's not like boss capitalism. It's not like I'm only going to work because somebody told me to. I'm going to work because I see from the integrity of my own mind that this is work that needs to be done. Now I'm scrolling through Casey House's excellent website, which she showcased during one of these events yesterday, for which I did have a ticket. It's, which one? Wait, those aren't my tickets. Here's my tickets. So this was the World Game event with Medard, which we just sort of sampled for a second there. There was a chat going along the side, which I archived with the Trim Tab Book Club. And then the collaboratory spotlight is the Casey House materials. And I wanted to say they look very, I have not, he's doing this without any close supervision by anyone I know. In other words, he's his own boss, and he's doing a good job. And we have collaborated. Like, he'll run by his excellent posters. He's doing, this is the kind of blend of graphic art skill developments and geometric background knowledge that we associate with the Fuller Archive. In other words, not the Fuller Archive, the Fuller Movement, the Design Science Revolution. There you go. We're getting there. Okay, so scrolling through this, I'm looking for links. More about Syn-U. Let's go. Textbook. Let's see, do these links work? Some of them do. So the textbook is under development. Good stuff on the A and B modules. So from there we can get to the T and E modules and the S modules and all of that stuff. So this is the kind of thing I've been looking for in terms of good quality, shareable artifacts, and Casey's been a source of those. Excellent stuff here. I'll let you take a look yourselves. And thank you to everyone involved in this very elaborate event, which, like I say, it raises questions. Like Medard was saying, how do we work around like blood clot nations if we think of the world as run by nations? Now, if you don't even think that way, it might not even be a question. But somewhere in the middle, like in the virtual nation worlds, where like we still do have a lot of belief in nations, obviously. I'm not saying that's a bad or wrong thing in any way, but it's just like we have a lot of religions. We have nationalism as kind of a religion. It's a big one. It's one of the bigger ones. I think, the Romans helped brand what it means to be, quote, an empire or whatever. The UK. So we have nations, but a lot of them are sort of depend for their identity on these more ghostly empires, which sort of give them roles. Because just, just looking at a Mercator projection of jigsaw puzzle pieces, there's no sense of roll. There's no sense of strategy. It's like looking at a chessboard and just seeing pretty carvings on a grid. So what? So there's more to the nation state concept than just a bunch of jigsaw puzzles, puzzle pieces. And I think that the nationless map here behind me, I had this in the background when I was on the World Game Call. You can sort of see it. That was inevitable. I think having a nationless map at the core helps us focus on other data. It's like we don't get as distracted by the Mercator treatment. The political data layer doesn't dominate. And again, is that more or less democratic? Questions for another time. All right. Good chatting with everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.